Good morning. Welcome back to Morning at 10 TV. My name is Malaki Vilodera, and on this particular segment, we'll be talking about two issues with relation to human rights. So number one is the new social media taxation, and then thereafter we'll be talking about human rights when it comes to women and their security. And in studio to talk about that, we have Counsel Nicholas Opio, who is a human rights lawyer. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
The new social media taxation. Yesterday, it slapped all of us. We thought that it would probably be postponed. Okay, fine. We know the government gave us an ultimatum of the 1st of July. And most of us never took it seriously. And so yesterday, on it went.
Yeah, people thought it was a joke.
Right, right.
Every year, July 1st is the date for a new tax regime and a new budget to start getting into operations. And, you know, July 1st was the date. And it has kicked up some uproar around the country because people are feeling the real effect. When the law was passed, people, you know, imagined the impact of the tax. Mm-hmm. But they're now feeling the real impact of that tax, which is limiting access to social media, impacting on people's businesses, impacting on all facets of lives, right, as you may know it.
Right,
yeah.
Right. From a human rights perspective, is it a violation of the human rights?
One, the state has the duty to impose tax, and it is a lawful duty to impose tax, and tax must be imposed for the purposes of development. But the impact of this tax has the possibility of unfairly restricting access to information, because access to information includes the right to receive and impart information. It has the impact of disenfranchising a huge number of people from participating in public affairs. So in that sense, there is a case to make for violation of the right to freedom of expression, because the role of the state must be to enhance the right, to promote the right. By imposing this unfair tax on the use of social media, what the state is actually doing is not promoting or enhancing the right, but rather inhibiting that right in a way that is unjustifiable.
Right. Right. Just over the weekend, we were having protests of a group of women, civil society activists who are on the ground just to protest against the state of insecurity in the country and the crimes that are being perpetrated against women, the youth and children. And so does this mean that we'll be seeing a wave of protests against this particular taxation and many other taxations that have been proposed by the government?
I think that Ugandans who are dissatisfied with the tax must use all lawful means to make their concerns known to the state. I hope that the authorities can allow people to express themselves in one way or the other. What we saw on the weekend was the possibility of a peaceful and lawful demonstration, regardless of the content of the demonstration. And I think it sets a new precedent that if the police act in good faith and that the people follow the guidelines issued, demonstrations are possible. And if that is the case, demonstrations against the tax is but one way of expressing this content. And I hope that Ugandans take up all lawful means, including litigation, to protest this tax.
To protest the
because
tax.
I think that the tax is unfair. You cannot tax yourself out of poverty. What the state is doing is behaving like a leech. It's just sucking blood out of every Ugandan, but not feeding it. Not feeding it. So I think that the state may perhaps, having seen the impact of this tax on ordinary people's lives, be compelled to revisit this tax. They have done so in the past. I mentioned earlier that there is a TV tax on our law books, but nobody pays a TV tax. In a sense, to own and use a TV, you must pay a tax. Yeah. It's in the law. So in that spirit, the state might revisit the decision to tax social media and allow people to have access to information. Because social media, forget about the bad part, which is really insignificant for me. In the bigger scheme of things, social media has been a force for good. There are hundreds of women across this country who access information about their health on social media. Right. There are hundreds of young people who have begun businesses based on social media. A good example, really, in terms of legal services, is the Barefoot Law, framework. What they do is use social media to provide free legal services to the very poor in this country. By levying this tax, you are cutting all of these channels of access to information and services. And I hope government sees that that is negative, and they might review. I mean, might review the tax.
We truly hope they review. You spoke about there's a possibility of us seeing a wave of protests.
Yeah.
When this group of women actually wanted to start the protests, they were getting bashing from the police, and the police actually arrested a few of them. Then what is the right procedure of a group to undertake before they go down to the streets in protest of whatever vices or whatever issues they want to raise awareness to? What's the right process?
Under the Public Order Management Act, it's a law I disagree with. I think it's a law that we have gone to court to challenge. What you need to do is notify the police within a week of that demonstration, of the intention to hold a demonstration, and request police to provide security and traffic guidance for that procession to take place, or that demonstration to take place. The police, underlying the word, have no right to grant permission. Their role, when they're notified, is to provide security to the people intending to hold demonstrations.
Okay.
And so you provide a notification to them. They're supposed to sit down with you and go through a security plan. You agree on the route you're supposed to take for that demonstration. And then once that's agreeable, you can then go on with your event. It is also important to note that if the demonstration is going to use or go through a private property, the consent of the owner of the private property must be sought and obtained. Because if you don't, then you're violating his rights to his own property. So I think that the rules are laid down very clearly. Once we follow those rules and we cooperate, and we believe that Ugandans have a right to demonstrate, we can all demonstrate peacefully in this country.
So the place of the police is not to give consent to the group that wants to go down in protest.
No.
Their role is to protect them.
Provide security.
Okay.
To ensure that those who want to demonstrate, demonstrate. Because the logic is simple, that you might have counter-demonstrators, or you might have people who want to take advantage of that demonstration to cause mayhem. So the police's role is to provide security so that people who are demonstrating do so peacefully. And the police have no place in granting permission.
Okay.
The police has no place in determining the content of a demonstration. If I want to demonstrate about something, you cannot tell me what to demonstrate about.
Right.
So the police has no place, and in fact no authority has any place in determining content.
Of the
as
protest.
long as that content is lawful. What I say in my demonstration, how I protest, if it is lawful, the police cannot regulate it.
The police cannot regulate it.
No, it's not their place to regulate content.
So today I can wake up and decide to just go down. I should not seek consent from anyone.
If you want to demonstrate and you have a number, okay, beyond 30, you need to notify the police.
Okay.
You need to work with them to ensure your security and safety.
If it's under 30?
You can go demonstrate, it's fine.
Oh, wow.
It's fine.
So it is our right to protest. We have a right to protest.
First of all, let me make this very clear, that the right to protest is an individual right.
Wow.
Okay?
Yes.
It is not a group right, it's an individual right. If you go and disperse a protest indiscriminately because one person in the assembly is perhaps behaving unlawfully, you're infringing on the rights of hundreds of other people. So the right to protest is an individual right. And that is why the police is required to provide security, so that if there's anybody within the demonstration that is behaving in an unlawful manner, the police has the mandate to remove them from that demonstration and allow the rest to continue with their demonstration. So you have a fundamental right. It's an inherent right that you must exercise peacefully and lawfully in accordance with the law.
Right. Before we wrap up the conversation about this new social media tax, you were telling me that it's against the law for anyone to, encourage other people to use, alternatives of accessing social media without paying the taxes. Is that so?
Under the income tax laws, anybody who incites anyone by any means to avoid paying a tax commits a crime and can be prosecuted and jailed for 7 years. So people had better be careful when you are encouraging others to use VPN, encouraging others not to pay the tax. If the tax body actually is serious, they might prosecute you.
Oh, wow.
Because Section 52 of the Income Tax Act and other tax laws require that if you incite people not to pay tax, it can be prosecuted. So be very careful, really. Very, very careful when you encourage others to use VPN and other means to avoid paying a tax.
Yes, so
it is unlawful.
No dodging of taxes.
Tax avoidance, tax avoidance is lawful. In other words, you can do things that minimize your tax liability.
Right.
Okay? Take, for example, if you are trading, okay, you can get a tax holiday, you can use other accounting mechanisms to reduce your tax burden. Tax evasion, on the other hand, is unlawful and is a criminal offense for which you can be prosecuted. So if you have to pay your tax, pay it. But if you have to pay the tax and there are mechanisms and means within the law to reduce your tax burden or to avoid paying the tax altogether, use lawful means to do so.
Use lawful means.
Yeah.
Even if it means going out to protest, now we know we have the right to protest. All we need to do is to inform the police 10 days prior.
7 days prior to the
7
protest.
days prior?
Yeah.
Okay, a week prior,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
A week prior, and then we go out, provided it's lawful and peaceful.
Yeah.
That's the caveat to that.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to matters of women's rights and the state of security in the country. Just last year, from around May last year to now, we've seen over 40 women who are gruesomely murdered, and still we don't have any substantive, kind of investigations into these particular matters. And that's why we were seeing the protests over the weekend. And this is a protest that just didn't start over the weekend. It has been, a force that has been, moving for quite some time. Of course, with the police being against them, and now at least we know that the police does not have the right to prevent anyone from going to the streets to protest. What does this make of, when it comes to our rights as women in stipulation of the Constitution when it comes to human rights?
Well, first of all, any Ugandan of sound mind must feel empathy for what has happened to our mothers, our sisters over the last couple of months. The abduction of women, the gruesome murder of women, the crude manner in which these things are being done, and the lack of an adequate response by the police. Anybody must be outraged by that. And I think that not enough people are outraged because it hasn't happened to you, it's happened to somebody else, and so you think it's their problem.
Right.
But I think we all must be outraged and demand accountability from the state, that everybody, including women and girls, must feel safe in our society. And I think that the march over the weekend was to underlie that outrage, that what is happening is unacceptable and that the state must reign over it and stop it from happening. Secondly, I think that for a very long time, girls and women have faced the brunt of this society. We haven't done enough to provide safety, precisely because we are a society that is hugely patriarchal.
Right.
The men are dominant, and therefore the interests of the men, even in workplaces, women are subordinate, even in homes. We haven't done enough to liberate women and allow them to be able to express themselves and be who they are. I think that the demands of the women who are protesting on the weekend, and not just women, there were a number of men as well.
Correct.
In the protest, I was there myself, is that we must do all we can to make this society safe for the most vulnerable in our society, women and girls, but in fact, beyond that, for everybody in this country. The killings must be investigated. The police say they have done something, they're investigating, but we need a report. They cannot be investigating forever. We need a report because as they're investigating this case, another woman is being killed. We need swift, adequate reaction from the police, and they must inform us what they're doing to make the lives of our women and girls safe.
You actually said it right. We need a report, and the police has to to give us evidence and investigate these matters. Part of the issues that were being raised by this particular women was the failure of the police to actually provide us with an annual crimes report, and this has never taken place. The last time it was done is in 2013. Is this against the violation of the women's human rights as well?
Look, the police has to be accountable to the peoples of this country. They are a public agency. They are paid by taxpayers. They have to be accountable to the people in this country. Providing an annual crime report was a routine and what we had come to expect from the police, and I think the police must provide that. Regardless of whether it looks bad or makes them look bad, we must provide an annual crimes report for us to understand the patterns of crime. Because if you don't understand the pattern of crime, then you cannot plan to prevent those crimes from happening. So I think that the police owe us a duty to provide that information. That duty is not in the law, but it's a moral duty.
It's a moral
that the
duty.
police must stand up to. Let us know what they're doing. They must be accountable to us, because we know, for example, that the police budget has increased tenfold.
Right.
We must see the impact of that budget increasing. And I think that the police must provide not just a yearly crime report, but even a monthly crime report into what their understanding is in the different trends in crime, to allow us to prepare for it. Because if the trend in crime now is abduction, then you sensitize the people about abduction. If it is kidnap, then it is kidnap. If it was school fires, it's school fires. So we need to know the crime trend around the country on a regular basis. I think for me, a monthly basis, the police must address the country on the state of security and the state of crime in this country. You
mentioned that accountability is key when it comes to us holding the police and them stepping up to their roles, so to speak. From your perspective as a lawyer as well, how long is the police supposed to take to investigate a murder, a kidnap case? How long is it supposed to take ideally? Because we've been having issues of investigations dragging for years on years, without accountability. You go and, follow up and you're told nothing, so to speak. So just for us to know, what's the time frame of an investigation before you're given even, a little bit of information into that? Well, to be fair to the police, there's no time frame within which an investigation must be concluded, because every case must be judged on its own facts. Some cases might be deeply complex. Some cases might involve hundreds of leads that you must go after and synthesize. So there's really no set time frame within which investigations must be concluded. Okay. But I think the general guiding principle is that investigations must be done expeditiously. Now that depends on the kind of case you're investigating. If you're investigating somebody who is said to have assaulted somebody, you don't have to take a whole week to investigate an assault case. Right. Simple. He attacked me, approached me, attacked me, or she approached me and attacked me. Simple. Medical reports, a case is made. So I think it depends on the cases and how complex it is. But I think that on the set of facts of each case, you can determine whether the investigations are inordinate or in fact are being done expeditiously. Being done expeditiously. I'd like us to listen into what exactly took over the weekend, just for you to follow up, just in case you're joining us and you have no idea of what we're talking about. Take a look.
More than 42 women in less than 2 years, and in very gruesome, they've lost their lives in very gruesome ways, and yet nothing, no report has been, produced to show that maybe the government is taking any feasible steps.
Because our voices need to be heard, because if we just keep quiet and sit down, people will think, okay, they're fine with it, but we're not fine with it. We're fighting for today, for tomorrow, for our girls of tomorrow, for our daughters, and I'm fighting for my friend Susan Magar, because most lives have been silenced. They were not supposed to die, but they died because someone did it just without security. We need security in this country.
I've joined this cause just to associate with the women, because many women are murdered and there is no answers. No one has ever been prosecuted. no one has ever been taken to court, and no one cares.
And the issue of violence and the threat of constant insecurity for them as individuals as they walk around the street and carry on their business, that there should be no threat of violence.
I want this march to raise awareness about what's going on. And when women are killed, sometimes they don't attract the same attention as when men are killed. And I'm here to say and to make a statement that women's lives matter in the same way as men's lives, as children's lives.
The French ambassador, Stephanie Revol, put it clearly that when we have men murdered, it attracts a lot of attention compared to when women are murdered. Are we to see a change in that norm in society?
To overturn the public consciousness and the patriarchal nature of our society will take a long time. It will require investment of time and effort by everybody, but more especially the women, for that to change. I don't think that that's a medium-term possibility, but it is something that we need to keep talking about and not keep quiet about it. Mm-hmm. I think that if we keep quiet because we're not affected individually as a person, you're allowing it to happen and nobody is safe. I think that it will take time. It will be perhaps false for me to say tomorrow things will change.
Right.
Because these are deeply entrenched cultural beliefs and the way our society works. To change that requires time, and I think that we must stay on it for a very long time and make the case that the lives of women matter as much as the lives of anybody else in this society.
Right.
I think that we should not just allow this to become a women's issue. This is a human rights issue. This is about a human being, regardless of their gender,
right,
or sexual identity. It's about human beings, and I think that if you begin to look at it as a human rights issue, as an issue for you, if you don't like human rights, it's about humanity.
True.
It's about humanity, and women are human beings. So we shouldn't make this about women only. So everybody must get involved. Everybody must get involved, the men, the women, boys and girls, young and old. Mm-hmm. I think that if you narrow this to women's rights, we tend to box ourselves into a very narrow, frame of mind.
Right.
I think this is much broader. It's about the safety and security of our society. We know that women are the bedrock of our society. They are the ones who take care of this society. Without them, we would be nothing. So we must make this an issue of human rights, that everybody must feel safe in this country, and the most vulnerable being women and girls.
Women and girls.
Yeah.
So we need to be consistent, and we should not stop at that.
I want to call all my fellow men out there who are sitting in the comforts of their offices, their homes, their shops, that don't sit there comfortably. Because if you sit there comfortably and not repudiate these violence we are seeing against women, it might be your sister tomorrow, it might be your mother, it might be your auntie. So it is really a question of the whole society, not just a question of women. Mm-hmm. So let's not leave this discussion and fight to the women. Right. Let's all get out and make sure that we make this society safe.
We will go to Andrew Chamagero in a few minutes, just in a few seconds. He has quite a number of questions from the ground pertaining to human rights and the new social media tax. But before we get to that, we have been seeing this wave. And so on Saturday, when we're having this protest, another specific and peculiar group of women joined in the protest. Yeah. And these are the sex workers.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that? And
well,
do they have a case to?
First, this was a march in which every Ugandan, in their different formations and identity, were called.
Right.
That march had older women, had younger women, had young men, had old men. So every Ugandan was invited to that march. Whether you like them or you're not, they're part of our society.
Right.
But secondly, and more importantly, when the murders began to happen in Entebbe and Wakiso, they were being blamed on prostitutes and sex workers. Mm-hmm. In fact, the women who were being killed were identified as prostitutes at some point. The then IGP, now ex-IGP, went and met a group of sex workers. So we were trying to blame sex workers for the killing. In fact, we were blaming victims for the killings. Mm-hmm. So it was important that their voices be heard. regardless of whether you agree with sex workers or you don't, they are sex workers in this country. And they came to say, we are not in any way responsible for the killings. We are victims as anybody else and therefore deserve protection.
They deserve protection.
Yes.
So they're under the constitutions, they have a right to protection as well.
Every Ugandan, regardless of their sexual identity, their sexual practices, where they come from, their color, their tribe, must be protected by the state. Okay. The state has a primary responsibility to provide safety for each and every Ugandan. Okay. Whether you agree with the trade that they're involved in or not.
Or not.
Yeah.
So it's lawful.
It is lawful. No Ugandan must be killed in any unlawful manner. Okay. No Ugandan deserves to be bludgeoned to death or to have sticks inserted into their private parts.
Right.
We should not allow that to happen.
Okay.
In a decent society, everybody must be protected regardless of who they are.
Okay, let's connect to Andrew Chamagero, who has questions for you from the ground. Andrew Chamagero, if you can hear me. Andrew? Andrew? Okay, he'll be joining us in a second, but that's a great pointer to note that sex workers are operating lawfully. Whatever they're doing is not a violation of the law.
That's not the point that I make.
Okay.
Because we know that under the penal code, prostitution is a crime. The point that I'm making is regardless of the trade in which somebody is involved in,
they need protection.
They deserve the protection of our society, okay? Because they are part of this society.
Right.
You can hide your head in the sand because you don't like prostitutes, because you don't like sex workers, but they are here.
Yeah.
And that in the ordinary day-to-day life, if they're going about their work, if they're taking their kids to school, if they're in a taxi going to whatever place they're going to, they must feel safe.
Right.
Everybody in this country must feel safe. In that demonstration, there were all sorts of people, including LGBTI people, who were simply saying, we are part of this society, we deserve society's protection, regardless of whether you don't agree with what we do or not.
Yeah, yeah. That's key to note. Andrew Chamagero, if you can hear me now. Andrew Chamagero? Andrew? Okay, we have a technical hitch right there. We cannot connect to him.
He hasn't paid social media tax, perhaps, so he couldn't reach you.
Most probably, we need to look into that. We need to pay our social media taxation. Thank you so much for joining us. And just before we wind up, do you have last remarks?
The last remark that I would say is this, that unless all of us are safe, no one is safe.
Right.
Even if you have a battalion of soldiers around you, even if you have guns around you, you're not safe. Unless all of us are safe. You might build high walls and rear German dogs to keep your family safe, but that is only temporary.
Yeah.
So we must ensure that this society is a society in which everybody feels safe. Everybody is heard, everybody is treated equally. And unless we get to a point where everybody is safe, it's going to be, it might take a few years, a few days, and this is not a threat, it's just a clear statement of a fact.
Right.
Things are going to happen. Even presidents who thought they were saved, who have been run out of town, if they don't make conditions in their country livable for everybody.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think that people who come to express themselves in whatever form or shape do so in good faith and just want to feel safe in this country. We've heard of girls and women feeling unsafe in public transport systems, in taxis. Catcalling is almost a normal business downtown. Women cannot feel safe simply because of the color of your of your lipstick, the size of your skirt,
right,
or the tightness of your jeans. That cannot be. In any society, everybody must feel safe. And I think that it is incumbent upon all of us, government, non-government organizations, everybody in this country, men and women, to make sure that this is a safe society. And like I said, unless we have a society where everybody feels safe, everybody feels equal, people feel they have an equal chance in life, it's only a sign for disaster down the road.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much for joining us on
Always
the show.
a pleasure.
Thank you so much. That has been the discussion. Thank you so much for taking part. We truly hope that you are on social media, and be sure to pay your taxes, but we truly hope that the government revisits this. My name is Malaki Vilauda. Up next is Take Note.